in Chicago, in Minneapolis, unrest over the police shooting of a black suspect. And while each case is unique, one thing is clear. Since Ferguson, this issue has become a national concern. In a new CNN Kaiser Family Foundation poll, 19% of African Americans say they've been treated unfairly by police based on their race. That's compared to 17% of Hispanics and 3% of white people. And that's just in the span of the past 30 days. In that same poll, 84% of African Americans say anger over police treatment is a major reason for protests in several U.S. cities. It got me thinking. What goes through the mind of a police officer during those tense situations? What kind of training do they get? And what makes them decide to shoot or not shoot? So I went to training myself. The scenario I'm about to show you was designed by former Navy SEAL, FBI Special Agent, and CNN analyst Jonathan Gilliam.
Give me my money now.
There's not always a right answer for when to shoot and when to hold your fire.
You should eliminate all the variables that you can.
It's a decision that law enforcement officers are asked to make every day on the job. Oh, that's heavy.
How much would you say this weighs?
Probably 25.
25 pounds. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm being outfitted for a tactical training course where it's up to me to decide whether to use deadly force. I'm also wearing a monitor that's measuring my heart rate.
There's a lot of different weights that law enforcement are carrying. They're carrying physical weight and they're carrying mental weight where they have to go into these different scenarios.
Jonathan Gilliam, former FBI and Navy SEAL, is my partner.
In order to go through the use of deadly force rules, you have to practice these types of things, and this is what law enforcement practices when they go through an academy, and this is what they face when they're on their street.
This first scenario is going to have is suicide by cop.
Kirby Scott is a retired special agent for the FBI. He's my sergeant today.
Officer is responding, which is you, to a domestic call of an EDP person, emotionally disturbed person, who left his residence and after threatening to kill himself at his residence.
My hands are already sweating.
And this is good. This is the stress that a cop is already feeling daily.
Okay, I'm ready.
Does he got anything in his hands?
Can we come in, Sean?
No.
No, he doesn't have anything in his hands.
Okay, go ahead and go on in.
Do not come in.
Sean, we just want to help you out and make your family feel more comfortable.
There's nothing you can do. My world is over. I'm done. I'm ready to die. I suggest you leave or we're all going to die.
Why do you think your world is over?
Why do I think my world is over? You talk to my wife. What do you think?
Why don't you show us your hands? Let's see your hands. Show us your hands.
Who are you?
I can see your hands in there, but can you just put us all at ease by putting your hands on the table?
How's that?
How about both of them?
How about no?
How about you put both your hands on the table for me?
How about you leave?
Put your other hand on the table for us.
I'm telling you now, if you don't leave, I'm going to kill everyone in this room, including myself.
So why don't you put your other hand on the table? No, put your other hand on the table.
I'm telling you, it's time to leave.
What would you do? Shoot or not shoot? Sean is mentally ill, suicidal. His wife wants you to save him.
There's a gun.
Now.
There's a gun. He's got a gun. Listen, place your hands on top of your head.
Listen to my partner. Place your hands on top of your head. We only want to help you. That's all we want to do. We don't want anyone to get hurt today.
Help!
There is help, Sean. I promise you.
There's absolutely nothing you can do but leave.
Come on, you gotta put your hands
Leave.
on top of your head.
Now.
You don't want to.
Leave. No, what's the
you don't wanna
problem?
hurt
Why are you
anybody.
not responding to me?
Carol, we gotta get
you
this
want
guy.
me to respond?
Okay, bam. You're dead.
If this were a real emergency, I'd have died. I didn't want to shoot him. Even when he had the gun on the table, I didn't believe he would shoot me.
Right.
Right? But he did.
Right.
So that was because I'm not used to dealing in those situations.
First off, he wasn't showing you his hands. That's a problem.
Gave me a false sense of security because by then I had my own gun out.
Right.
When I saw his gun, and I thought, well, he's not going to shoot me because I have my gun out.
Right.
So as soon as he put the gun on the table, I could have shot him.
Sure, because action beats reaction all the time.
If he presents the threat to you, then you have the right to use deadly force, not just to protect your life, but to protect your partner or anybody else, because if he shoots you both, he can then go out and be a deadly, imminent danger to the public. All right, I want to bring in former Navy SEAL and FBI Special Agent and my trainer, Jonathan Gilliam. And first of all, thanks for taking me through that, because
I learned a lot, frankly.
I think you're a very brave individual to go through that, because the reality is we cover these things daily, and most people analyze it, but they don't necessarily go through that training. So my hat's off to you, and Kirby Scott wanted me to send that to you as well, that we appreciate you going out of your way to do this.
He's awesome. He's a really awesome guy. Even in watching that, my palms were sweating again, and it was a fake scenario. You could tell by my heart rate monitor that as the situation escalated, my heart rate beat faster and faster, and this wasn't even a real scenario.
Because it becomes a situation where the whole situation is really dependent on the other person, not you so much. The end outcome can depend on you once you see the threat, but the reality is how it unfolds really is dependent on the behavior of the individual in which you're confronting.
Okay, so let's talk about the behavior of Sean. This is Sean. His behavior was not rational, right? But I kept trying to talk him into giving himself up because I wanted him. I didn't want to shoot him. I just didn't. I knew he was suicidal. I knew he wanted me to shoot him, and I thought that I could talk him out of it. Sometimes a police officer can do that, right?
That's correct. However, the point when he pulls the weapon out, now what happens is he has presented a imminent threat of serious bodily injury or loss of life by putting a lethal weapon on that table in his reach. And he's telling you that somebody is going to die today. At that point, the whole scenario changes, and your job as a law enforcement officer goes from saving his life potentially to saving your own and the other people around you. And that's where these situations...
It can't become like a shootout at the OK Corral kind of situation.
That's exactly, and that's not what your job is. Your job is not to shoot it out with somebody. Your job is to eliminate an imminent threat of loss of life before it spreads to you, your partner, or the public around you. These are very hard decisions. As you can see, the stress level, the two things I think that you hit on here more than anything is that you didn't show up to kill Sean. And at the end of it, because things are changing so rapidly and you have to go through the force continuum on use of deadly force, you have to make those decisions quickly, and it appears a lot of the times that cops are making the wrong decision to the public, but in reality, they're facing that threat and they're making the decision that they're trained to make based on the reality of what's going on at that moment.
And we should mention the reality is that most officers never shoot
That's
their
absolutely
guns,
correct.
Right?
Absolutely correct.
So we forget that. And that's not to say that there aren't bad cops and bad shootings, right?
Right.
It's just we need to put everything in perspective.
Right. And if we would have had another outcome for that, then we could have moved in on Sean and secured him at that point. But when he presented the threat, our response to that threat had to change. And it had to go to use of deadly force, which you see in this case what happens if you don't make that decision and you push it too far.
Jonathan Gilliam, thanks so much.
You got it.
We'll have another scenario for you in the next hour of Newsroom. In a matter of months, a Chicago police officer will be put on trial for first-degree murder in the shooting death of an African-American teenager. It's just one in a long line of disputed shootings between the police and their communities. Video evidence helps, of course. Still, it's not often a clear-cut case, even if you have the pictures. So I decided to put myself through a critical training course designed to help me understand how a responding police officer decides whether or not to use lethal force. The training scenarios were each unique, as are all of the cases that have been scrutinized, especially those involving a white police officer shooting a black man. A new CNN Kaiser Family Foundation poll shows the issue remains on the minds of black Americans. 1 in 5 say they've been treated unfairly by police in the last 30 days. And the majority of Americans, both black and white, say that anger over police treatment of black Americans is a major reason for protests. That said, the scenario I am about to show you was designed by former Navy SEAL, FBI Special Agent, and CNN analyst Jonathan Gilliam. Are you Miguel Richardson? A weapons training scenario.
A mother of a victim received a call from her daughter that her boyfriend had a knife and was threatening to kill her. The victim is deceased. A male fitting the description of this individual named Miguel. Olive complexion, 5'6" to 5'8", tan pants with a black shirt with some logo on it, and also a black or dark colored a cap.
It's my judgment call. I'm playing the role of a responding police officer. It's my job to protect the community and decide whether to use lethal force.
It's been confirmed that he just murdered somebody, and now he's loitering in the middle of the street. We know that he murdered with a knife, so the potential of him having a knife is very high, and you should consider that in your use of deadly force.
Is your name Miguel Richardson?
Sí, yes, sí.
I'm going to have to ask you to stop moving.
Estoy cansado, quiero ir a mi casa.
My heart rate increases, peaking as I engage with the possibly armed suspect.
No entiendo inglés.
Stop moving now.
No
Get on the
entiendo
ground.
inglés.
Show me your hands. Get your
No
hands out of
entiendo
your
inglés.
pocket. What would you do? Shoot or hold your fire? Take your hands out of your
Quiero ir
pocket.
a mi casa.
A difficult call. I decided to shoot.
Let's see what you had in your pocket. Okay? Tell us what your thinking was as you worked
Well,
through
he
this.
refused to take his hands out of his pocket. I knew he might have been armed with a knife.
Right?
And so I felt if he was close enough to me where if he took his hands out of his pocket with a knife, he could have killed me. So I
Right.
shot him. Now, he didn't speak English,
Right.
which is the only caveat there.
And that throws a whole nother wrench in the whole ball game.
It turns out this time I made the right choice. But it was a choice I made not knowing whether the suspect was indeed armed.
A person with a knife at 21 feet, if the weapon's holstered, can get to you and stab you. 21 feet.
21. He was
So-
much closer.
Yeah,
Than that.
the whole thing is either space gives you what? Time.
What if he didn't have a knife in his pocket?
The threat is imminent. What is not known to you is what's in his hands, but you can't take the risk as a law enforcement officer that that guy is going to kill you, because then he can take your gun away and then kill other people, just further his killing spree.
You do not have to assume that risk because you're a police officer. You're here because of the intelligence. If the person's not complying, then that gives you on notice. And that's what one of the really difficult things to actually deal with.
Had we taken his knife away from him and he didn't have a knife in this scenario, you still would have been justified in what you did.
Absolutely.
Wow.